Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, February 1st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game is in 210 days, the game against Michigan in 301 days. If you are planning your next event, you should make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. And of course, they are going to be at Standardized Brewing in Lewis Center this Sunday from 11 to 8. Sounds like several Buckeye Huddle staffers will be there as well, so please do come say hello and get some tasty smash burgers from Grateful Griddle Sunday at Standardized Brewing. All right, so today's show, looking at the Buckeyes who left in the transfer portal following the season. We did an offense show early in the week. Now we're going to be taking a look at the defensive side of the ball, and this is where perhaps the single biggest transfer, the guy who maybe was set to play the biggest potential role on the 2025 Ohio State football team, where he left, and also, boy, the biggest potential destination for him, for anyone on this team, because they're going to be playing one of their former players in the very first game of the year on what is almost certainly going to be a big noon kickoff game. Can welcome in Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com to talk about it. Tony, we have to start with the absolute big one. Hero Kanu, who seemed like he was destined or very likely to pick up a much bigger role on the interior of the Ohio State defensive line. He left, probably the single biggest transfer that they had lost over the course of the offseason. But man, where he's going to go be a Texas Longhorn. So while he's leaving Columbus now, he is coming back to Columbus on August 30th, and it is going to be a monster game when he does.
Yeah, it'll be a nice welcome home for him after being gone for all of about, 9 months or so. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when we watch players transfer to see where they transfer and how far a step down do they take. But this is certainly not a step down. It's just a step over the Mississippi and over to Texas. And this is one where also I don't believe you can call it an NIL thing, because as an international player, they cannot accept NIL because it would interfere with like their visas or whatever that they have here. So this is just looking for a different opportunity, as far as I understand it. And this is an opportunity for him to, I guess, I don't know what Texas's defensive line situation is right now, but Hero Kanu at Ohio State was going to be top two at either three tech or nose tackle, and he's been playing some nose tackle, and him and Caden McDonald likely would have been sharing that role just as other people have over the years for Ohio State. So this one was a little bit of a surprise, I think, at least to me, that he would choose to leave. But going to Texas, it's not exactly a step down.
No, for sure. And that, depending on what you think about this year's upcoming unproven, mega hyped quarterback battle, Arch Manning, Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kienholz, whoever it is for the Buckeyes, these are two teams that are probably, they certainly met in the Final Four of the college football playoff this year. They could easily meet in the Final Four of the college football playoff this upcoming season. So this is one where you're a popular target of some very high profile teams. That is not necessarily, that's a pretty win-win situation. Go play for Texas, go play for Ohio State. That seems like something that a real opportunity for him. But I'm with you. Yeah, that was someone who you thought might get a much bigger role for Ohio State this upcoming season, and now going to probably take on a much bigger role for Texas in the middle of that defensive line. Someone else that leaving the Ohio State defensive line that was a little bit of a surprise, Mitchell Melton, edge rusher. He had played 4 full seasons at Ohio State. Well, I say he played 4 full seasons at Ohio State. He was on the roster for 4 full seasons at Ohio State, but missed a couple of years with injury and was finally taken on a much bigger role towards the end of the 2024 season. And now seemed like, okay, no more JT Tuimoloau, no more Jack Sawyer. So he heads off now to Virginia. You thought maybe he's going to stay, take on a bigger role. Nope, he's taken on a different role with the Virginia Cavaliers. Certainly going to be an easier path to the playing field for him. And, maybe that's what this is all about, that you have an opportunity to put more tape out there. But this is another one where you thought, well, certainly he has an opportunity if he chooses to stay in Columbus, but ended up taking a different path.
Yeah, his snaps definitely would have gone up next year from this year, where, he only played in one game over the last 10 or 12 where he played more than 10 snaps, and that was That was the blowout against Tennessee. and even down the stretch since the Michigan game, he had more snaps than Caden Curry, who you would expect to be one of the starters this coming year with Kenyatta Jackson. So even then, you're talking about you're going to be on the field. But if you look at, there are complaints throughout the season, like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry aren't playing enough. So maybe there aren't always snaps available for the number 3 guy. But when you're talking about Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau being the top 2, like how often do you want to take them off the field? I think the desire or the ability to give Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson rests in 2025, you'll probably have a better opportunity for that if you were Mitchell Melton, to give Mitchell Melton some time. With him gone now, it's a thin room that's going to require some freshmen to step in. But for Mitchell Melton, who has did not play his first 2 years, played one snap or played in one game as a true freshman in 2020, the season opener, and then did not play again until I believe the season opener of 2023. So this is a guy that has a lot of pent up playing time, and now I think he's going to go and get all that he can stand. Which hey, good for him.
He's one, and you're right. It was 5 years, not 4. I think I said 4 earlier. It was 5 years, but he's also one where you look at it and it's like, how many years of eligibility does he have left? You get real squinty, like, I don't know. It's all a little bit relative. Like he might have 2 more years at Virginia, depending on how you want to define things. So, yeah, it is a you wish him the best. Definitely not a spot where Ohio State has a ton of depth between Kanu and Melton leaving. Probably 2 guys they would have preferred to hang on to, but let's move on to the linebacker position. This is a spot where the Buckeyes do have a little more depth. They lost Gabe Powers to Kansas State. Gabe Powers and George Fitzpatrick, the offensive lineman we talked about the last time we did this, both going to Kansas State as the players to be named later in the Will Howard trade. But this is one where I think when you have Sonny Styles back and you have Arvell Reese, who is playing a pretty significant role this year at times, and then, we'll see where CJ Hicks is, but you got some very talented freshmen coming in there at linebacker as well. This is one that you kind of go, yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand. I'm sure he probably would have loved to remain with the team and be part of that national championship run. But you look at it and you're like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you certainly get it. You could have understood if he stayed. And we've seen the last couple of years how the backup middle linebacker is a de facto third starter. We saw that with Cody Simon in 2023. We saw that with Arvell Reese this year. Could have seen it next year in 2025 with Cody Simon or with Gabe Powers. But rather than being the backup middle linebacker, I'd like to go and have my shot at being the starting middle linebacker at Kansas State, because as we always talk about with the guys that transfer, once you get passed by a younger guy, then good luck overcoming that and scratching through that. Cody Simon had to wait it out after being passed by Tommy Eichenberg. Gabe Powers being passed by Arvell Reese this year, and pretty quickly that was enough for him to realize, well, we're basically the same class, so there's never going to be an opportunity unless Arvell Reese were to leave early for Gabe Powers to be the starting middle linebacker at Ohio State. So go somewhere else. And as you said, he's probably got some good word back on Kansas State from Will Howard. And hopefully it goes well from there, because another guy who had a nice moment early, seems like a year ago by now with that interception and that pick 6, but an Ohio kid that she'll continue to root for.
For sure. And staying in the Big 12 now, Calvin Simpson-Hunt, cornerback, someone, it feels like a lot of the conversation we just had about Gabe Powers and where he stood on the depth chart and guys who may have passed him, well, you're kind of having the same conversation with Calvin Simpson-Hunt, which is probably a good part of the reason why he is headed to Baylor.
Yeah, you got passed by Aaron Scott and Bryce West this season in terms of playing time. Only played on defense, only saw snaps in one game. That was the second game of the year. So it was a step back from his true freshman season when he did get some playing time and looked promising, and just wasn't able to build on that. Maybe part of this is just, you miss home, and once you get closer to home, and he is from Texas, so you go back home. Texas, a well-known small state where everything is right next to where you grew up, for sure. but even being back home in that state will probably, you would think, you would hope, would help him out. And he's a former top 100 recruit, all kinds of athletic ability, but you could say it just wasn't working for him this year when he's on special teams and sometimes he's not on special teams. So this one, not a huge surprise. And then, as you said, once you get passed by 2 true freshmen, then boy, the writing on the wall is complete neon with flames at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Airbrushed up there for sure. Waxahachie, Texas, his hometown, 1 hour from Baylor. So that's basically next door as far as Texas goes. Someone else who's going not quite, kind of next door statewide is Jaden Bonsu, New Jersey native. He's headed to Pitt, not exactly the correct end of Pennsylvania, but certainly potentially a opportunity for him because he was someone who came in, reputation as a big hitter, and just never, that is a talented safety room at Ohio State. And there's another year for Caleb Downs. There's another year for Malik Hartford. You've got some other talented guys in there. Jalen McClain certainly made an early positive impression there. Jaden Bonsu just never quite was in that same conversation with like a Jalen McClain this year. So he was another one where it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I get it. And there's probably a much easier path to the field in the secondary for Pat Narduzzi than there is for Ohio State.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at, he didn't even play this year. So passed pretty quickly by Jalen McClain as a strong safety. You even had Inky Jones playing in special teams ahead of him. You had Leroy Roker got into a couple of games ahead of him. So this one was pretty easy as well. To me, I kind of see him as a future linebacker. He's just a big safety. So maybe Pat Narduzzi can do something with him and find a new home for him at his new home, or maybe he's going to fit right in as a big hitting safety. But yeah, it was a tough haul at Ohio State when you're behind Lathan Ransom, and then you get passed by Jalen McClain. You got Malik Hartford there who can play either spot as well, and he was clearly ahead of Bonsu. So this one was another one where this one you just didn't see it happening for him, and until he finds, like I said, I don't think he's a safety in Ohio State's defense. Maybe he can be in Pitt's, but we will see.
Yeah, we will see for sure, and that's going to be, that safety position is going to be one of the many things we're watching as the Buckeyes start to make the turn towards spring ball. We're still sort of figuring out what that's all going to look like this year. There's a lot of exciting stuff to figure out this year with the Buckeyes in spring ball and heading into the season. We're going to be tracking all of it for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting, and our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well to make you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.